The Scourge returns. New Lich King is already here. Oh my god, who's taken over? We know the crown of... the Tiara of Wills currently exists. We'll have to see what else goes on. Let's find out what happens.
As our return to Northrend is imminent on the new, enlarged, and revamped continent, the Scourge awaits for us. We have official book information that not only confirms that they're still running their facilities and creating a ton of new undead all the time, but they also still control a significant amount of territory, with local warlords vying for power all the time. However, one warlord, the Red Lord warlord, the one that created them in the first place, is
don't tell me, I'm gonna let the man cook, but please don't tell me he's gonna say Sire Denathrius is gonna be the new Lich King. I mean, we already said he's gonna take the Burning Woods. Sire Denathrius is just everything now. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess I'll let the man cook a little bit more. But there's always been the line: there must always be a Lich King. And now I thought this stupid Tiara of Wills kind of put that to rest, and I got excited when I clicked the video, and I told me Saturday. Okay, but
I'm in as the Titans are coming in the last Titan, and he's going to mobilize all his spawns: the Legion, the Scourge, and the Light. The old undead army is still powerful and completely aimless, but not aimless for long. Imagine if you could be a part of an MMORPG creation process, if you could name an NPC, design a dungeon, design a quest. Well, you can actually do that with Scars of Honor, the MMORPG that is truly being built by the community. I've known these guys because I featured this game on the channel in the past, and they had really gone light years in development. I mean, they started with only a few really passionate people, then grew to a bigger and more robust team over the years. I mean, this is the type of passion that created original Blizzard, and you can actually now be a part of it, and you can support them directly. Scars of Honor is based on the world of Aragon, a free-to-play MMORPG, cross-platform, all about a community experience, not a single player in an MMO setting. You can go as far as naming an actual city in the game, designing a dungeon with the team, but even with the lowest pledge, you can get your own name in the game credits. So make sure to click my link in the description, check out the Kickstarter, and help make Scars
These guys outsourcing the work of making the MMO? That's new.
Honor a reality and become a part of their community. The Scourge has really been one of the most influential enemies really in all of Warcraft history, and I would honestly say the most iconic one. And despite the fact that from this perspective
what's
they were
happening
really
to my Scourge?
not that big of a threat. I mean, when you compare it to the Burning Legion or the Void armies, they definitely felt like the most threatening army, at least in my opinion, and the most well-developed one. The Scourge seems like the Scout Crusade. I mean, it has been defeated over and over again, but as you might have noticed with the Scarlets, they managed to pull out a huge force out of them despite them being almost non-existent. With the Scourge though, this is a much stronger force, and a force that has been confirmed to still be in large numbers up to the present day with the time skip and everything. To really understand the status of Scourge, you need to look at the information and the mechanism, how they really work, as this is what really makes armies super powerful. For example, the only reason the Burning Legion was so devastating was because of the Argus machine mechanism and the fact that they were essentially mortal. They would constantly come back.
Because of Argus, they could regenerate like 10 times faster than they normally would if they went to the Twisting Nether, and it was just a never-ending army. Which, yeah, I agree. It's, I guess, kind of like the Scourge. You know, you kill them, and more dead are raised. Every time you fight them, everyone who died in that battle now gets raised on the other side. So it's essentially a never-ending army as well.
While the undead could technically come back again through necromancy, it's really hard to kill an undead. Their main mechanism was how they just spread like wildfire. We have seen this firsthand back in Warcraft 3, where one crazy guy with a few grain shipments and followers managed to overtake the entire town, to overtake the prince, to ultimately destroy the entirety of the northern eastern kingdoms in the span of like a few months. Keep in mind, the Scourge destroyed the entire kingdom of Lordaeron, doing what the Orcish army never could. They ravaged the entirety of Last, killing most of the High Elves, what the Amani haven't managed to...
Man, you know what? WoW has changed in terms of story writing. I hope it goes back. We got Metzen back, but I can't imagine today's team writing into the game a culling of Strathome. Like, that is so violent. Like, it's literally the killing of women and children and elderly and everything else. The man just freaking killed everything in that city. And today we've got, Dragonflight, Friendship, Hold My Hand. Farak is not going to kill anybody. He's just going to, turn up the heat in the room on a little night elf dragon. And that's about as violent as it's going to get. He did turn a little centaur into ash. I have to say, he did do that. But the culling of Stratham in today's WoW, I can't imagine I'm writing a story that violent. But that violence is what makes that story so good. It's just such a crazy act. And we got to be part of it, too. In the Caverns of Time.
In thousands of years. The main reason for this success is the mechanism, because the Scourge was fighting all the living, so
Hillsbrad does still have humans hanging.
They would transform entire towns into zombies, and even defenders that fought them eventually turned. This is really what made them unstoppable. However, this is just the Eastern Kingdoms and that branch of the Scourge that has mainly been destroyed. The real power was and still is in Northrend. What a lot of people had missed, because most of this wasn't actually in the game, and that is that before Lordaeron invasion began and after Arthas took over, Northrend was constantly under attack by the Scourge. It was literally a scourge upon the entire continent. The undead army managed to break the entire Nerubian Empire to turn them to their side. They destroyed a massive kingdom, they defeated resurrected dragons, they took the Vrykul under their control. Pretty much all the native races to Northrend were affected, and that is what made them insanely powerful. However, that literally just explains the numbers. The thing about the Scourge was that it wasn't just raising ghouls and random civilians in huge numbers, it had entire facilities, advanced technology, machines that was literally creating monsters. Damn. Gigantic flesh.
That's some violent shit right there. Yes, even like these torture structures, and we see shit like this. Look at all that blood. That's the old WoW right there. That's some good shit.
Monsters, gigantic flesh monstrosities that were the size of an entire zone, terrible stitched abominations, massive ice-breathing dragons, and they even went as far as to try and resurrect Galakron. Now, the reason I'm talking about all this backstory is because infrastructure like this cannot simply be broken. It is far too developed, and despite a lot of people thinking the Scourge is a thing of the past, it isn't actually a thing of the past, and we got actual information to prove it. I'm not just speculating here. So, the first major defeat of the Scourge was in the Eastern Kingdoms, then most important one was when he defeated Arthas, then Bulwark came in and was only there to hold the Scourge from not spilling everywhere. After that, Sylvanas broke the crown, the Scourge went crazy for a little bit, was even controlled by the Jailer, and it did some damage, but then it was subdued. Most, if not all of their presence in the Eastern Kingdoms was vanquished, but the powers in Northrend still remain in quite large numbers. A little more than a year ago, the book Exploring Azeroth Northrend was released. This was an official book that was updating the state of Northrend after Shadowlands, and we got quite a bit of information on their status, where they are, and how they are, after all this time, still a thing. Overall, it was said that after Zoal has been slain and the Lich King was obviously no more, as, well, the Zoal kind of took over, the mightiest of the Scourge warlords vied for power, but it was never actually explained what happened to this power struggle.
Yeah, I've heard about this, that there was basically a power struggle, or, you know, there was a power vacuum of the Scourge, and you basically had, you know, necro lords and all kinds of people trying to take over, trying to take the lead. You know, trying to take over the as leadership of the Scourge, because the Scourge is really aimless. That shit just goes rampant and wild when it's not controlled. So some others were trying to control it, or trying to at least take a leadership position, and they didn't really ever say, I think, who won that. It was just infighting.
Kind of left open-ended, and I'm
Kel'Thuzad was still alive. Probably would have been him.
Happened when we go to Northrend. The only thing we know is that one of the most powerful warlords of the Scourge, a Sunline Blood Elf, led a pretty big incursion into Quota Las. This is the questline that happened at the end of Shadowlands, and we did manage to defeat him. Oh, however, this was not the leader of the Scourge. This was just one Scourge faction controlled by a powerful warlord, but it is almost certain that the main big guys still remain in Northrend.
Interesting that now the Death Knights are going to get, if you're a Blood DK, you can be a Sandlane Blood DK. So it's interesting that we're getting that spec, and then, yeah, I forgot about that story, the Sandlane guy, that little Scourge army to Silvermoon.
The Scourge has been confirmed to not only be active, but to mainly be aimless post Shadowlands. But keep in mind, while they're aimless, they're not a brainless army. Sure, a large chunk of the undead are quite literally brainless, but many powerful liches, lieutenants, Sunline, necromancers, other intelligent form leaders of the Scourge still remain. Think Kel'Thuzad, but not ruined by the Shadowlands lore, and they all have their own independent goals. While we're on the topic of Kel'Thuzad, there was talk about Nextremis in the book, and how no one seems to be able to shoot this place down. The Alliance has tried multiple times to do it, but never could accomplish it, and Muradin in particular, as keep in mind, this book is written from the perspective of the Bronzebeard brothers in Northrend, talks about how Muradin is worried that the Necropolis is waiting for something or someone. Now, the main center of the Scourge, Icecrown, ground is still filled to the brim with the undead. We know some of the main surrounding areas of the Ascon Citadel were actually taken over by the Ebon Blade and they control it, but it was said that the Citadel itself is still swarmed with the undead and it is terribly dangerous. Even more importantly, Fleshworks is still active up to this day. If you remember back from Wrath, this was a giant facility dedicated to the creation of abominations, flesh giants, other undead, and the book, Both Shadowlands, A Bit Prior to Dragonflight, confirmed that the Fleshworks is still producing undead at a slower.
So they're still making abominations, still making undead. That was my main question before I started watching this, and I was concerned about, I'm like, are the undead still being created? Yeah, that's answered here. They are. They're still making undead, so their numbers are still, if you're not killing them, their numbers are still growing. So, I mean, I guess eventually that means they will become some type of threat again, because if their numbers continue to grow, they're going to spread eventually. Well, how the Ebon Blade will take care of that, Mirrodin talking about next, are we going to have another return to Nax? I don't know.
Late, but new
I'd go back to next Rammus again.
And they're expanding their numbers. They're not actually losing numbers or falling apart. The only thing is it isn't really done with a specific purpose, but let me just tell you, if we got this working and a certain person comes in and takes over, he's got all the facilities to rebuild their numbers in no time, and we'll get to that in a bit. Furthermore, we got an update on the Argent tournament grounds, and it was said that the place was remade into a place for the Argent Crusade, and any that want to continue to fight the Scourge.
I love the Argent tournament, man. I love that place. I spent so much time there back in Wrath, doing the jousting tournaments and everything. Oh, God. I missed those days. That was a good time. That was a good time. Those dailies were fun. That whole area was fun. You had like the raid, you know, basically the Argent tournament raid where you just sat in the you didn't move. Just bosses came to you. It was kind of a cool concept. But I would go back to the Argent tournament if they brought that shit back. And we know we're going back. We are going back to Northrend. I believe in the if it's the Midnight expansion or the Last Titan expansion, but it was confirmed that we are going back to Northrend at some point.
Actually being invaded by the Scourge, incursions are happening all the time, and the only thing is that the undead are aimless, so most of these invasions are not really all that dangerous. It is not one huge coordinated attack. Now, of course, we have covered everything that Blizzard has confirmed so far, and we established some of the facts. The Scourge still remains in pretty large numbers, their facilities still work, they still got the machines to create new undead, they're still making them, and they have even taken over some areas while some ground has been lost, but the main thing is that their leadership has been broken, at least the main leadership, and now they're kind of stuck with the various rival warlords. Does this sound exactly like one other giant army that comes to mind? Well, you guessed it, the Burning Legion, and I'm a firm believer that the same person is going to take control of both, as both of these are connected and ruled by the same characters. I made a full video on this if you want to check out the Burning Legion returning and the information, but it is a similar giant army of demons that remains. Sargeras is in prison and they're ripe for someone else to take over. The only thing I would say is that the demon army is actually much larger, much more ancient than the Scourge.
And the demon army, I feel like, is more controllable. I don't know how Sargeras would control the Scourge, because the Helm of Domination was part of that before. And now they've got this, I don't know if the Crown of Wills actually does shit to the Scourge. There must always, that lore got fucked, honestly, it did. There must always be a Lich King and everything. Maybe he reforges the Helm of Domination, who knows, I wish. But Sargeras controlling the Legion makes a lot more sense to me, because you know you've had Dreadlords in the Legion armies before. Like, they've infiltrated their way into that. They know how the Legion works. That all makes sense to me. That he could do that. But the Scourge, how the hell would he control them? How would he get them to do what he wants? I don't know. I still think there's another future for the Scourge. It's not Sargeras.
On average, much more intelligent. Now, check out one thing that connects both of them. You guessed it, the Dreadlords. Both the Burning Legion and the Scourge has been created by the Dreadlords, and the Netrizim are right now more powerful than ever before, and their leader is on the run, as the Netriz's ending was left open-ended, and he's finally close to accomplishing his master plan. Check out the end of the Shadowlands cinematic and remember what the Netriz says. You could have chosen another way, brother. Imagine what we could have accomplished together. Now, I've already talked about this, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. You already know about the Great Cycle, the 6 cosmological forces fighting each other, yada yada, and how Denatrius is the one that is pushing the Death Realm. We believe the Jailer was like the main Death guy, just like how Sargeras was the main Fel guy, but the reality is that Denatrius is really the brain behind the entire thing. He's really the one that is pulling all the strings. As we know by the current lore, he essentially broke the Titan Pantheon by having his Dreadlords drive Sargeras crazy. Then his Dreadlords infiltrated the entire Burning Legion, destroyed most of life together with the Crazed Titan and his crazy army. Then he broke the Machine of Death by infusing Argus with death magic. So not only did he defeat this order of the Titans, he also broke the Machine of Death and ultimately escaped himself. Now we have the World Soul Saga, and we know the Titans are coming to Northrend in the last Titan. Prior to that, the Void and the Light will be
I think he's giving Sire Denathrius a bit too much credit. I think there was other forces in action, maybe some from the Void. We've talked about it before, the Primus and Aman'Thul playing a role in us killing Argus. You know, and they wanted that to happen and shit like that. I think they played more of a role than Sire Denathrius did. I think, you know, Sire Denathrius obviously did some shit. He was playing from behind the scenes. He was playing his own chess game on the side. I don't know if he necessarily had something. Maybe his plan was eventually to have the Jailer lead the Scourge and he would lead the Legion. And, you know, he could convince the Jailer to do certain things for him. But to say that he was, you know, oh, he masterminded all of Shadowlands, he masterminded us killing Argus, I don't think he had anything to do with that stuff.
Azeroth into a battleground in Midnight, which essentially means every cosmological force is going to come for Azeroth in the next few years. Well, let's turn back to Enemy Infiltration, the book from the Shadowlands. Apparently, Dreadlords have infiltrated Life. They got a Life agent. They have managed to infiltrate the Void Lords, and they got a Light agent, which is almost obviously Lothraxian. Let's look back at the Scourge. Do you remember who created the Scourge? It was the Burning Legion with the Dreadlords. The Dreadlords personally made the Lich King and his armor, aka the Lich King, that was connected directly to the Death Realm. As I said in the other video, Denatrius has really set the ground up. He only now has to pick up the fruits of his labor. Remember, most of the brains of the Burning Legion had been the Dreadlords. They're still there. They're still with the demons. He can definitely mobilize this entire demon army through them, and he can play with the light through the Traxian and the Age.
Also, as far as the Lich King armor goes, was it the Dreadlord? I thought it was the Primus made that shit. Well, maybe the Jailer had controlled him and made him make it. Supposedly, that's how the lore goes. Make that stuff. The Dreadlords. I don't think the Dreadlords had anything to do with making the armor. Maybe they played a role in making sure Arthas found the armor. Sure, but not. I don't think the creation of it was from them.
On the inside. However, Northrend is his home turf. The Scourge is his natural power, and if anyone is going to take control over them, it is going to be Denatrius. He's got the numbers there, the Dreadlords.
I mean, Sargeras bound Ner'zhul into the Helm of Domination. That's nothing to do with the Dreadlords. I think there's a bit. Oh man, I gotta freshen up on my Lich King lore.
Lieutenants, and he's got the facilities to expand their numbers and to turn them into a significant threat once again. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think we are getting Lich King 2.0 and that the Scourge is going to be the main enemy like it was back in Wrath of the Lich King without this. Personally, I think Denatrius is going to manipulate the demons the most and use them in his main army, but I'm also almost certain the Scourge is definitely going to be a thing in Northrend in the last Titan. However, I do feel like the Titan forces will be the main enemies, the main threat. The Scourge is going to be like a side thing, something that he's going to use to set the ground for his plans as all the cosmological forces come for Azeroth. Thank you for watching. Check out Zelda and 10.2.6 by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient Greek colonies in Spain by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
That's what I would say about this video is I certainly think, you know, the Scourge will play a role going forward. I'm not sure what it's going to be, which side they're going to be on. Because the Scourge can be turned to, you know, they can be turned against us, or they can help us, depending on whoever's kind of leading them or controlling them. Because they're basically like this force that just can blindly be aimed at anything, and they'll destroy whatever they're aimed at. So we'll see. Yep, which led him to Illidan. Yeah, well, Illidan, he wasn't led to Illidan. Illidan kind of got in his way. On his way to where he was being led, which was the, you know, Frostmourne. And at that time, it was the Helm of Domination. He was on his way to the Helm of Domination, and then Illidan got in his way. But to say Sire Denathrius is going to become the next leader, I don't think so. I don't. The Burning Legion, I can see. Yeah, the Scourge, probably not. But we'll see how Metzen decides to use the Scourge going forward.